Hello. Welcome back, bitches.
Welcome back, bitch. Coming in hot, Molly. I like it.
Coming in
Coming in, you worthless sacks of shit.
We just like straight verbally abuse our audience for the first 30 seconds.
Shit.
Welcome back. Okay, so repeatedly over the last, over 2 years of this show, we have had people express that their favorite episodes deal with career change and kind of the pursuit of happiness and fulfillment in your life versus getting stuck into the grind of capitalism and what we're all told that we should do. So we're doing an episode on that, on career change, kind of like the facts and figures of it generationally, and then as well as kind of breaking down, because I think a lot of people, especially after the pandemic, but are considering, have really been looking at what really lights me up and makes me happy, and why can I not be making my income from that? Why does that have to be on the side? And what is, and then building up the courage or whatever to take that leap, because a lot of times that means stepping away from a lot of stability, financial security, and it's scary, but I think a lot of people are wanting to do it, and hopefully this episode sheds a little light on, you're not alone, and also encouragement on like what you could gain from making that call.
Yeah, and if you might be a new listener, but like this is our sweet spot. This podcast
Yes.
is called SOS, as you see behind us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do that. Because that's what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about those moments where you jump into a career, jump into just a life-altering moment that you just don't know how to navigate completely, know how to process. You feel alone. You feel like you're not up to the challenge of it, or you're a fail, simply.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that we had this idea before the pandemic happened and before we had to actually go through that ourselves.
It's so
like,
funny.
It's so bizarre.
Like months before.
They're like, oh, you think you know what an SOS is? No, you don't.
Try this.
So our definition of SOS and our own personal relation to it has changed. So I feel like it's fun to talk about this because we're right there with you.
Yeah, everybody. So, and we are both millennials, and I know a lot of our listeners are, not everybody, but it is.
Yes.
It's very interesting because the way like big cultural shifts take time and like generations of time. And there's a reason why, our grandparents a lot of times had one job, for their whole career. And then, our parents, maybe two, maybe a lot of them one, but, and it's kind of like, but there are reasons for that. And, our generation, so millennials have been dubbed the job hopping generation. Yeah, that's right. Unemployed. So unattached to organizations and institutions, people from this generation born between 1980 and 1996 are said to move freely from company to company more so than any other generation. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that Gen Z is right there with us, and possibly even more, but at least the same. And I know that a lot of that has to do with the internet, and, like the internet kind of came about while I remember learning in second grade that it was coming out. Like we didn't grow up with social media in high school, and, Facebook just came out, going to college. And so we just got in there. But with the internet came this, like the world all of a sudden is so big and it became so small, allowed people to use kind of like do things on their own and have their own tools to create careers and create an audience and create a brand and all these things for yourself without being under, like it said, unattached to organizations and institutions, because we don't really have to do that now. And I think it's allowed people to, in our generation, to see themselves in a different light, more self-sufficient, and also to continue to pursue fulfillment in a way that previous generations weren't even afforded that luxury.
Absolutely. I think you're right on the money with that, with the internet. I think even with the internet, like we are also exposed to a wide array of not only like job options and seeing what else is out there, but information about how our world works.
Yes.
And because of that, you're getting bombarded with all these news articles about the recession, the market crash, everything,
cryptocurrency,
everything. And you're just realizing how, for lack of a better word, fucked this world is. and that you could strive for more, and that this world for millennials wasn't built and made for us.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
with that knowledge, you're going to be like, well, I deserve a better pay and better treatment from this institution, from this
Yes.
company, and I'm not getting that.
And I think a lot of older generation, they get annoyed. You know, you hear that like they're annoyed with millennials, or they're entitled, or you think you deserve. And the thing is, I think a lot of our generation, it's not coming from I deserve this and these other older generations don't. It's more like, no, we all should be able to have benefits and healthcare and
Yeah.
paid maternity leave. And, you know, so I think the egos of generational turmoil can come up, because it's like, why they think they deserve. It's like, no, you deserve it too, but your generation like wasn't given what we, you know, you built a foundation for us to now be able to look at it like this. So it's like we all build on one another instead of like.
And prior to the internet, all you got was American propaganda, media
Yep.
propaganda about how great this country is and how no one does it better than us. And now we're learning that other countries have been doing it better for years when it comes to treating people fairly with wages and benefits and everything else. So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that we are the generation that's breaking these cycles.
Mhm.
And maybe we can get back to a place. I mean, we're going to get to all of it more, but maybe we can get to a place where we can stick to companies and be happy and stick to one career. But we're not there yet, because I feel
because
like
the companies aren't structured for that yet.
we have
They're
to rebuild
starting
it.
to. Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah.
So, according to peoplepats.com article, Employment Trends by Generation, job hopping was once considered a taboo practice in the workforce, but has been increasing in recent years across all age groups. Reports expect that 1 in 4 people will quit their job as the pandemic nears its end. I feel like maybe because we're artists, I feel like it's 4 in 4.
Yeah, for artists, for sure.
But
100% of people will actually quit their job.
no one you know is employed right now. Isn't that crazy? According to a recent labor report on employee tenure from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, employees of all ages in the U.S. change jobs on average every 4.2 years, with even less time for ages 35 and under. To me, that sounds reasonable.
It does.
I think it's,
And I actually thought about even when I was working in restaurants, I
forget it.
shifted like it's like, but everybody I knew too, you know, it's like every 3 or 4 years. I mean, I was only at like 3 restaurants or something. But you know, every 3 or 4, it was that, even though I wasn't changing industries, but it's about that time when and even moving apartments, I'm like every 3 or 4 years
it's
is
so
like,
true.
okay, time to change.
But like, you think about it, you know, when it comes to the service industry, and you see a lot of job hopping happening there, because it's just, you
It's
know,
way more-
restaurants and you want to do that. And I think back, like I was at our restaurant for 5 years, and now I think about it, it's just like, there were so many people that are like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
Because there wasn't great treatment practices happening. And that happens a lot. And I feel like with boomers, and we're going to get into that and like why they stick, there is a Stockholm syndrome aspect
Yes.
to like, I should just stick it out because I don't want to start from the ground up somewhere else.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's just that mentality is keeping you there. And I feel like we're the generation that's just now recognizing
Yeah, I think it's a shift from valuing security above fulfillment.
Yeah.
Which for generations that had to happen because you had to take care of your family, and there weren't a lot of. It was structured differently in our, like I said, our grandparents and our parents' generation even. And then I think millennials are the first ones that are starting to be like, but what if I prioritize my fulfillment over my stability? And then the stability will catch up. Like we're the first ones that started to flip that, I think.
Yeah. And that's so revolutionary. That's
Yeah.
so shocking to older generations.
Yeah.
But and I feel like it's all projection, right? They want to point or wag their finger at us. But in reality, they just wish they had that
Yeah.
autonomy.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Baby boomers, people in the baby boomer generation, born between 46 and 64, are not as likely to change jobs, shocker, as often as they near the end of their careers. But they still can move around or retire. Nearly 10,000 boomers turn 65 every day and consider retirement. And by 2030, all boomers will be 65 years of age or older.
So retired or nearly retired.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Gen X generation, this group is born between 65 and 79, has at least 20 years of work experience. As baby boomers retire, they are ready to take on higher leadership positions and are willing to change jobs to make it happen. In the Global Leadership Forecast 2021, 60% of surveyed leaders from all generations said they feel used up at the end of the day. And among that group, 44% said they expect to change companies to advance. So like,
Yeah.
60%.
Yeah. People in the top
That's
roles
so
feel
sad.
used up because this is a whole structural change that needs to happen, and it's going to be slow, but there are companies leading the charge. And I know, like, even my friend had a boyfriend that worked for Lego, and it just was like that. The offices just were that, like in Silicon Valley movies where you show up and everyone's on a beanbag chair and everyone, there's like a cafe and like, but it was that vibe. And it's like, that's kind of like the startup, cliche, but it's also slowly starting to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because people in leadership roles of these massive companies right now, especially, well, a lot of people, but the leadership roles especially are completely fried and used up, and they're considering leaving because it's too much and it's not built to sustain.
Yeah. So sad.
Millennials. So data from a recent Gallup poll finds that millennials born between 1980 and 1996 are 3 times more likely to have changed jobs within the past year than non-millennials. 1/3 of this group plans to quit after the pandemic.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. So Gen Z, this generation is born from 1997 onward and has recently entered the workforce in entry-level positions in the last 5 years. Younger workers are generally more comfortable with digital technology and value more flexible schedules for a better work-life balance. Remember, they grew up with social media, with tablets, iPhones, iPads, like with, that's insane. I cannot imagine. But they did. And so it says, according to a Pew Research Center study, 92% of Gen Zers go online every day, with 24% of that group indicating that they are online almost constantly. A study from Monster found that 76% of Gen Z respondents feel that they are responsible for driving their own careers. And that's notable because a lot of, especially baby boomers and even Gen X, it's like the mentality was like you go into a company and the company takes care of you. The company is responsible for driving your career after that. Like you kind of you hitch your cart to a running train already.
Exactly.
But Gen Z, 76% of them feel that they are responsible, which means they believe they have the capacity to create the career that they want. We can expect this group to be similar to millennials with job hopping.
So funny.
Yeah. And now, so like you said earlier, switching jobs used to be a resume red flag because it was just like,
oh, you're not loyal?
Yeah. Like, why couldn't you stick around?
Yeah.
Now it's becoming more accepted practice as people seek to advance their careers or adjust to layoffs. Obviously, COVID-19 has forced many companies to downsize, which will further destigmatize job hopping. Like you could have 15, 20 years of experience right now and you go to a place and interview, they're not going to be like, but what happened in 2020 that made you destabilize?
Wow, you really couldn't figure it out.
So if you're considering a huge career shift, possibly branching into another industry entirely, don't let the fear and apprehension stop you because, take some notes from the bright-eyed Gen Zers who are like, no, I have the ability to control what my career looks like. Mm-hmm. And so if this is something you believe will bring you more happiness, take the leap instead of doing more of the same when you know you aren't satisfied. And so we have 7 benefits to changing industries entirely, not even just jobs.
Yeah. So first, broaden your experience. Changing industries will force you to learn about the new market, new clients, new trends, and new ways of working. By changing industries, you become more resilient and make your technical and transferable skills the cornerstones of your career success whilst broadening your experience. I mean, that's already such an advantage when you're job hopping or just trying something new, because I mean, like, how much experience can you really get staying at the same place? Because you're just learning one way of doing things. You're surrounded by one type of people.
Yeah, and then you become on autopilot.
Exactly.
And you're just going through the motions.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
New opportunities. when you limit yourself to the same industry, you could be missing out on great opportunities that would bring you more joy or fulfillment or money.
Mhm.
Perhaps your current employer doesn't offer good career progression, or maybe your industry is going through a tough time. This is a window of opportunity to create your new reality. And that is absolutely true.
Mhm.
Stepping outside your comfort zone is number 3. Have you become complacent in your industry? Have you seen it all and become the go-to expert? Are things a little too easy? Changing industries will be a shock to the system, but a huge leap in your professional development. I mean,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing that's like heavier on the soul when, like you said, you are on autopilot and you're
Yes.
not being challenged at all.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to be like creatively inclined to know that that side of your brain is thirsty.
Yeah,
You know
you
what I
need that
mean?
like stimulation, and also it really like boosts your sense of self and reminds you certain, I think adults, children are constantly discovering things and trying to create who they are and discover who they are and constantly looking for that and absorbing. And then as we become adults, we kind of like settle into, well, I know who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. And we kind of just like coast for a while. And I think that there's so much beauty and importance in having, like you just said, stepping outside your comfort zone. And then all of a sudden you're challenged in a new way and it may be triggered in a new way, but then you're also like, you forget the thrill of discovering something you're good at, or like
Mhm.
discovering that you're actually like what you feel as a kid when you first like play volleyball. And then the coach is like, you're really good. And you're like,
Oh,
I'm good at a sport. Like, am I an
yeah.
athlete? Oh my
Yeah,
God. Like it's
yeah.
exciting. And then, but we just kind of get out of that.
Yeah, and also we were kind of taught to look at that because there's a lot of millennials that looked at their parents that were already feeling the burnout, the used up
Yeah.
feeling. And you're like, well, I guess this is just what I'm in store for.
Yes.
You know, it's like being an actor. I knew like, oh, I have to be a waiter. I'm going to have to be a waiter. I don't have to fucking suck it up.
Mhm.
And that was how I went into it. And if I can give any advice to Gen Z, it's the advice that I love hearing from older generations. It's understanding and remembering that life is short. Don't think that it's short in a way that like, if you're our age in your early 30s, that you're just like, it's too, if you're not like completely financially stable with a 401k, like you're just a failure and don't try things new anymore. No, it's short in the way that like, if you're wasting more than a year at a place where you're not valued, it is just 1 year too many, because it's just a waste to stifle your creativity and stifle
Mhm.
your happiness, because who knows what's going to happen. There could be another pandemic. There could be like, it's just, you got
Right.
to start and start now. And one of those things you have to start is start finding your passion. We often end up in a specific industry by default because that's where we started our careers and things started to kick off. Ask yourself, am I passionate about my industry? If not, why not? Maybe now is the time to try something else. There's a huge advantage to working in an industry that you care about. It actually makes your job interesting.
Yes.
And I feel like this sort of has something to do with the like me being a waiter. It's like I thought that's literally what I had to do. Like I
Mhm.
didn't think I could do anything else. I
Mhm.
thought, well, it's flexible and that'll allow me to do my creative endeavors,
Yeah.
acting and auditions. When depending on, and not every restaurant was like the one that I worked at, but I just feel like you got to try something new, because
Yeah.
I was in a
Yeah.
good place for many years because of it.
For sure. And it's really the importance, which this is like the core of SOS. What
Yeah.
we even wanted when we started the podcast was asking the question, like that question, am like this one, am I passionate about my industry? Why or why not? But more
Yeah.
importantly, like, am I happy in my day-to-day life with even just specifically work, with what I do and what I spend my time doing and how I make my money? Am I fulfilled? Am I intrigued by it? Like,
Or
I,
do I deserve it? Do
yeah,
I deserve to be happy? Like,
right. That first.
could keep you
Yeah.
there.
It's like we hear these things all the time, but then do we really sit down and ask ourselves these questions? Like for my birthday this year, one of my friends gave me a journal, but it was like 52 lists, like, and it just like kind of little prompts and
Mhm.
ask you to make lists of certain things. And I've done a few of them. And it's funny because it's like, you see these things all the time, but you don't really sit and do it. Like one
Yeah.
of them was like, I don't know, like list 10, really anything, like list 10 things that you want to achieve in the next year. It's like the most basic generic question. But like I sat down and did it, and we just got to sit ourselves down, just ask ourselves a question and then force ourselves to not like leave the room or leave what we're doing until we answer it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we have to, because that's the way we get to the next place.
Yep.
So number 5, grow your network. The thing with changing industries is that you're not losing your current network, you're expanding it. That's really important to note. There's a lot of crossover between industries that we don't even know about until we're in it, you
Yep.
know? So don't hesitate to ask for help before, during, and after your transition. Learning a new industry takes a while, and it's important to connect with the right people along the way. Think about the different perspectives that you're able to bring and how it could benefit the people you're working with.
And I feel like something that could hold you back in this regard is the grass greener. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
like people usually think the devil you know is some
Yeah.
cliche after cliche, but the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
So it's like I should just stick this out instead of, like you just said, growing and expanding your industry and expanding your mind and creativity in that
Yeah.
front as well. It's like it keeps you there because you're just so afraid because we're
Yeah.
so abused in these industries that you just
Right.
don't think that it could get better.
And you might also think you're a lot less prepared and qualified than you are, because you don't always
Exactly.
realize how your skills transfer and cross over to another industry when there's direct parallels a lot of the time that you won't know until you're in it. So just go do it.
I just feel like the common thread between this and the Amber Heard Johnny Depp one is just we're abused.
Yeah.
Everyone's just
We're just all abused and we're used to it. So let's get out of it.
right. Exactly.
So number 6, boost your earnings. Of course, your salary and benefits could increase with an industry change, even if this isn't the driving force behind your switch. Many industries that are exciting on paper are much less so in real life, either due to being severely underpaid, undervalued, or both. So find something that aligns both financially and mission wise. Like there's a lot of glitz and glamour of like, there's a big name company or you work for them or you have a fancy title. There's all these things that might grab you. But at the end of the day, a lot of time the shine wears off once you're there. And so you really need to, while you're searching, you really need to just cut back through that and look at like, what is the mission behind this company or this brand or this industry? Or if you're a freelancer, you really got to look at those things, because those are the things that'll last and that won't chip the polish off once you start.
Yep.
And then number 7, so it's never too late. You're nothing's set in stone. You can return in style. So number 7 is really like, don't panic, because if you decide to go back to your old position or your old industry, you can. And actually the advantage is that you will bring now new perspectives to complement your industry skills. You could make yourself more invaluable to the industry that you left. And so we have to remember, like, making these choices, quitting a job is scary, and quitting to try something new is even scarier, but nothing is set in stone. You do it, you try it for a year, you try it for 2, you try it for 6 months, you can still go back. And now you have more perspective on, okay, what was it that I was unhappy with? What do I need to demand now that I'm going back? Or what do I now appreciate that I didn't appreciate before? What skills have I learned? You're not like shooting yourself in the foot permanently.
Yeah, I have a really close friend that really judges himself for sometimes. I mean, he's not really a job. He falls right in this millennial sort of how often he changes jobs. And he's someone that I think about when we're talking about this, and like what she just said, what you're afraid of leaving behind will always be there. And the friend that I'm talking about now is a perfect example of that, because he's someone that has switched jobs because of like not being treated right. But like might have made a decent amount of money, whatever, and has gone on to other jobs, and is currently trying to get out of this one. But every single company that he's left has asked him to come back.
Wow.
And like, it's going to happen. Like, he's not an anomaly. Like, he's a very intelligent and hardworking person, but I'm just saying, like, he's not an anomaly. Like, that stuff happens all the time, because it's just like,
and you become more valuable, you gain more skills when you leave and try something new, and then you can leverage those skills in the future when you do go back, if you go back. So there's a lot of pressure out there to specialize in a particular industry, and with it, the fear that changing industries could damage your career, but it's really not that simple. So nothing is set in stone. Your career path is yours and yours alone, and that's like, just keep that in front of you when in these times, because I know everyone's shifting around. People are thinking of quitting, changing, or they're just unhappy, but they're afraid to quit. Like,
Yeah.
you guys can do it.
And don't let, older generations in your family or whatever in your circle make you feel bad for doing that.
Or irresponsible.
Or irresponsible. Exactly. You are doing the best you can with the information at your disposal.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, I think there's no loftier pursuit than pursuing your own fulfillment and happiness. So,
or braver.
Yeah. And so, there's going to be people in the peanut gallery who are like, that's not smart. Like, what about the finance? It's usually the finances and the stability. And those are real valuable things, but they do not hold more value than your own peace of mind and your own happiness. Like, they do not.
Exactly.
And you will figure it out. Sometimes you have to take the leap somewhat blindly, and then the universe meets you halfway. Like, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully that kind of inspired some of you, or gave you a little.
I'm inspired
by us.
Yeah. So guys, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Follow us on YouTube, SOS with Molly and Alyssa. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, we're there. And rate and review us. It helps us reach more people in the algorithm.
Yes. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Alyssa Rosano.
Here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.